Aloha and welcome back to another episode edition Packers Ohana Packers edition podcast. I'm sorry, my words are all jumbled at this point because I am still in a state of disbelief over what Gutekunst and the Packers accomplished it's Tuesday when you're hearing this, Sunday when we're recording it. So 3 days ago for us, 5 days ago for you, but Joe, for all the naysayers, Gutekunst finally took his swing and hit a home run. You know what? Like I said, I know it's almost a week since, and the Packers will be playing in just 5 days from now, but it happened. I know that on last week's episode, we both sort of wrote it off as being unrealistic because any sane organization wouldn't let a 26-year-old perennial defensive player of the year candidate caliber of player walk out the door for anything other than some kind of egregious off-field incident such as murder or some sort of thing to that nature. So what are your feelings on what happened on Thursday?
For the most part, I'm surprised about the trade just because I figured it was going to be too costly for what the Packers were wanting to do. I've said this in just a little, on socials and that it, as a draft person, a guy who loves the draft, it's hard to see them give up 2 first-round picks because that takes part of the fun out of it for when we go into that time of year. But as a fan, I mean, how can you not be happy with getting, a top 3 pass rusher in the league at the moment? And what's it been, 4 years, and he's had 12 plus sacks per year.
Yep.
So
First guy to do it since Reggie White in a career. So I mean, just the list goes on and on about how big of a thing this is. And like you said, there were like 3 roadblocks to what I expected would stop this kind of thing from happening for Green Bay. Like you said, the first being cost, or I'm sorry, first being just Dallas actually agreeing to do it. Second being the cost, what it would cost, and the things going out in the trade, and then the third being how you would have to do the contract. And like, we'll just go through each of those items one by one. I know that this first point is more of a Dallas Cowboys thing, but I just can't believe that the situation deteriorated to the point where Dallas agreed to move on. Like, we won't spend too much time on this one. Like I said, from a Green Bay point of view, this is the kind of player that the Packers have always stated they would be willing to pony up and pay for. It's just never happened because 26-year-old defensive player of the year, like perennial defensive player of the year candidates, do not go on the trade market because when other teams find these kind of guys, I mean, the last time Green Bay had one of these was Clay, and they extended him at the first chance they got. And unfortunately for Clay, he just had shit luck injury. He broke his thumb right after the contract. He basically broke it twice in the same season after that. He had the hamstring issues, all that kind of stuff. So, like, those kind of players just do not become available. So that, like, I could stammer on and on about that aspect of it. But yeah, like, how shocked are you that Jerry, as much as everyone and myself at the forefront of it want to make fun of Jerry Jones, like, I can't believe they talked themselves into being done with him.
it doesn't surprise me with Jerry because some of the things that are coming out about it were uh, supposedly he approached Micah and said, well, let's get this contract out of the way. And Micah told him, okay, well, let me get hold of my and Jerry's like, no, we're going to do it right now. And Mike is just like, no, we're going to do it. My agent, we're not going to do this without my agent. And it's like, that just shows that he's got too much old school to him where, forget the agents, forget all this, what would you want? And he knows going through an agent, the agent's going to get as much as he can for his player because that's more money into his own pocket. So it doesn't surprise me that it happened the way it happened. Does it surprise me that it's the type of player going up? Yeah. does it surprise me that theoretically it was so little in return that the Cowboys are taking, just 2 first-round picks, and of course losing Kenny Clark, but there's an argument either way for Kenny Clark on the team. But and then Jerry's like, well, we needed a run stopper, and that was going to be the thing that we were going to talk. The only teams that we were going to talk to that had a guy like this that we could trade him for. It's like, what? I mean, I like Kenny Clark, but you're going to give up a 26-year-old for just 2 first-round picks, and then he tried justifying the first-round picks, which I understand. Any team wants multiple first-round picks, but if you think about it, if the Packers do what the predictions are and they make a run to the Super Bowl, that's going to be a bottom of the round pick anyway. So I I I don't understand Jerry's concepts and what he took and what, but I understand how the situation broke down so quickly, because that's just the Jerry type of thing. Is
Right.
let's just do this on his own because he's hoping he can get a cheaper contract out of it.
Yeah, and like this would make sense in the context of like, oh, because he and Steven Jones both made the comments that like, we don't like that our roster is unbalanced. It's hard to win in the NFL if you're paying like only 5 guys top of the market money. First off, that's not true. Like the best teams are playing. There's tiers of how you pay guys. You're paying each really good championship contending team is playing 2 to 3 guys top of their position money kind of thing. And furthermore, that justification for being the basis of jettisoning Parsons out is made extra stupid when you look at who they just paid the last 2 seasons. I like Dak as a player. I do think Dak is like a fun player to watch. He is not a guy who should have reset quarterback contract amounts. CD did deserve to like reset wide receiver money, but it goes into each of those go into like the Cowboys thinking that one, the salary cap, forget that it's not real, that it just doesn't exist anymore, and that, like you said, old business works these days kind of thing. And they, instead of being able to like get to the table early, like good teams like the Packers, like Gutekunst and Ball try to do, you get to the table a year early, start having these good, hearty conversations, and you get guys like Elton Jenkins when he did extend, when he was dealing with a knee injury, guys like Zach Tom to sign for what can only be described as under market value deals. And instead, you play hardball, you play the long game, and you end up being like, we can't pay this guy this much. And it's like, you could have not had to pay him that much. But like I said, that's a whole thing for Cowboys podcast to go into. The second thing that we both sort of touched on is cost. And like, I don't know how much a player of this caliber should cost. Like, people kind of pointed to Khalil Mack, and Mack was really good when he got traded, but he wasn't a 50 sacks in his first 4 years guy. Like, there were, if you go and look back at Khalil Mack, there were articles after his second season that, oh, he may never be an elite pass rusher. He might just be like a Rashawn Gary type. He's going to be a reliable edge setter who will, he'll get sacks, but he's not going to be a sack artist kind of thing. And he took off. He ended up with 40 in his first 4 years. So nothing to sneeze at, but not 50 in his first 4 years. And at the same time, he was a year older. And so it's like, that's the thing, is like Parsons, debating on what medical official you ask, he may not be in his prime yet. Like, that's the weirdest part of it. And so it's kind of like, it probably would cost too much. My mentality was, it'll cost too much, because what do you even give a trade for that? Like, I was like, okay, he's gonna cost 2 first-round picks because I know he's on the 5th-year option, but it's the equivalent of being on the franchise tag, yada yada yada. So it's like 2 first-round picks is a starting point. If anyone called if any fan of any other team called a Packer fan and told him, you're going to trade 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark for Micah Parsons, and I think my first question would have been like 2025 Kenny Clark, not like 2019 Kenny Clark. Like you said, I love Kenny. I hate the human side of it, that this is how his Green Bay career ends. I said it with Shavink on Thursday. Like, it absolutely sucks that if this Parsons deal works out the way that the Packers are, projecting and hoping it to, the absolute cruel part of it is Kenny's career is going to be summed up as he's the guy who got traded for Micah Parsons, which is absolutely insanely disrespectful and cruel. But so many people are going to refer to his 9-year tenure as a Packer as, oh yeah, that's the guy who got traded for or for Micah Parsons, and it's like, that sucks for what Kenny gave to the Packers. But it's one of those that even in his prime, you think about it, but you do it because, yes, what Kenny offered 4 years ago as an interior pass rusher, it's not as high as what Parsons does as an absolute offense wrecking pass rushing player kind of thing and stuff. And like, and the fact that we have to say, oh yeah, if Kenny was 5 years younger, you might think about it before you pull the trigger, but we're still pulling the trigger kind of thing. That just shows how much of an under price I think this deal was from the Packers' point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I was just sitting here trying to think because for some reason it's sticking in my mind that the year that Micah was traded, that there was not traded, drafted, there were a ton of rumors that the Packers were trying to move up for him. Do you remember hearing that?
I do not. I do not. It's funny because Goot played it real coy, like, oh yeah, you kind of saw this guy at the combine and you didn't know what position. I think Goot was talking about how he hadn't played the COVID year, so you're kind of like, oh, it's hard to scout him and stuff like that. But I think what it came down to is the Packers picked.
That's what I was trying to look at real quick.
No, the Packers were picking 30th that year because that's it was 2021, so it was the year they lost to Tampa the year before. So it was the draft after they had lost to Tampa in the championship game. And I think Micah went 13th or something. So I think most of the talk was they were trying to go up and get like Rashad Bateman that draft.
I don't know. I just remember hearing a lot of, for some reason, I remember hearing a lot of Micah chatter even back during that draft time. So, I mean, it could be completely out there, but I just, for some reason, I thought they had been on him for a long time. So, but just going back to the cost of the trade itself, like I said earlier, as much as I hate giving up the first round picks because that's less for us to do in the off season, to only have given up the 2 first round picks and Kenny Clark, it makes you shocking. I know there's been initial knee jerk reactions to this trade has been Dallas failed it. I know like 20 minutes after the initial announcement of the trade, the Fleeced was trending the Elon machine. When you clicked on it, they were talking about the Cowboys Packers trade. So I know there's a little bit of issue with his back, and you wonder how much of that was played up there because he just didn't want to play until he got a contract or whatever. So it just giving up those, I'm okay with it. I wish it would have been a little bit more like a Devontae style trade where, it's a first rounder and a second rounder, and then you could have gave up Kenny, because I think I could have been okay with, 2026 without a first rounder and 2027 without a second rounder. You can't not be excited. I just hope people are tempering their expectations on things, because like I was telling somebody the other day, one player does not make a Super Bowl. You still have to have cohesion throughout the whole team. You still got to have a modicum of luck going into the season, going through the season. Yes, this is a huge pickup. I don't quite put it on Reggie levels yet, but I would say it's probably a little bit more similar to Woodson being brought in. And because there's a lot more historical things about the Reggie coming to Green Bay than anything else. So I have a hard time
And good
comparing those two.
and good on Gutekunst for like framing it that way when in his presser on Friday afternoon, where he basically said like, I can't speak to, you can't compare where the franchise was at each time. Like this team was already knocking on the door of contention. Like the 93 team was like, okay, that Favre kid is cool, but like what else are they? Like, it's, and the team might still move kind of thing. So I appreciate Gutekunst like putting everything in the correct frame. And I agree with you to an extent. Like overall impact, if it all works out, it should be similar. Like on the field impact, it should be similar. My other point is like, and it's tied into how much I trust Jeff Hafley with all of this, is that Parsons doesn't have like a home position kind of thing. And you need a coordinator like Hafley who is going to use him properly. I thought that was one of the things that was really dumb about Zimmer last season, is that he was like, "Nah, you're just a defensive end," and like you didn't see him do any of the things that Dan Quinn had him do in the previous seasons, where it's like he's gonna stand up at Sam or Mike or Will linebacker. He's gonna put his hand in the dirt. He's gonna stand over the A gap. He's almost like your slot defender on some plays, and and Hafley's gonna do all of that. Like it's gonna take time because he's got to come in, get in shape. He's got to buy some place to live. All the things that like you don't really consider when you're just a fan of a team. But like there's so many other things he's got to do. But as the season goes along, when you hit that like week 7 or 8 window, that's when like if he's healthy, he'll be quote unquote fully unlocked in this defense. And it's really excited to think about that.
Well, I just can't. There's a whole lot of things about the Reggie situation that you can't compare to.
Yeah. I'm just talking purely about his on-field
Right.
impact. Yeah, I totally agree with you that like that Reggie situation, like people throw it around so freely now, but it was truly a special moment. Like it legitimately saved the franchise from moving to a different city. And that's why that move can never, it's on a different stratosphere that I don't think will ever be touched in the history of the Packers again, just because what it monumentally meant for the Green Bay Packers remaining the Green Bay Packers moving
Well,
forward.
on top of that, it's like he was like the first official free agent to sign a big money contract. There's a whole fun story about it with Holmgren that, Reggie said that, well, God will let me know where I need to sign. And Holmgren called him and said, Reggie, this is God, come to Green Bay. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of situation with the Reggie deal than over the Parsons one. I can even kind of say on the field, you're going to get two different types of players also. So it's hard. Like I said, I view it more like a Woodson thing where even though there was an age difference between the two when they joined the Packers, they still are a similar type of player where they don't fit into one position.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there that like the difference there being Parsons is in his prime or starting his prime, and Woodson is at the crest or end of it. But yeah, it's like you said, Reggie, you knew where he was going to be. He was going to be across from your right tackle every play, kicking his ass. And like that was the thing, is like most of the best pass rushers are right ends because they're on the quarterback's blind side. Reggie's like, nah, you're going to see me take your guy's soul and come after you kind of
The
thing.
funny thing is it makes sense because usually your right tackle is your weakest of your pass protectors anyway. So, I
Yeah.
mean, why not take advantage of that a little bit more too? Typically, it was always the left tackle was your blind side, your right tackle was more your because you had more time to react because that was in your
Yeah.
zone of sight. So that's what made it even more fun.
And what also elevates Reggie's legend more, and no one would ever have, I would have never dared to think of this in his presence, but he was like the originator of the useful dad bod, because like it's one of those where you like, if you didn't know who Reggie White was and you saw what his physical body looked like, you're like, okay, he's tall and he's strong kind of thing, but he had a beer belly. Like, it wasn't like, he didn't look like Miles Garrett or something like that does today. I think where it's like a chiseled 6'5", 275. Like, if you're told Reggie's 6'5", 300, you're like, and
Right.
stuff, and like it just added to the like to for me it like elevated his like legendary status, that it's like everyone told you how strong and how mean and how like aggressively he played, but like you kind of looked at him and you're like, that's like, it's kind of like when Nigel Gruff walks up in the replacements and the coach is like, this is the leg. It's kind of like, it's the whole, this is male this is male body perfection kind of thing and stuff. But like I said, we don't want to make this the whole episode, and we do have our schedule prediction to get into. But the last part being the contract, which is like the third of three strikes that I didn't think the Packers would get over. It's a lot of money. Like, but, and it was the thing that it wasn't the amount of money that I was doubting the Packers would do. It was the fact that Parsons was going to rightfully demand a sum of guaranteed money that the Packers have not given out to a non-quarterback in their previous history. And like I said, this is the part where the kind of player that Parsons is does not come available in trades. And Gutekunst and Russ Ball said, fuck it, we're going to make the trade. We're going to figure out how to do the deal. And goddamn did Russ Ball figure out how to do the deal. So the big number everyone saw on Schefter and Pelissero's tweets and Rappaport's tweets is he just broke the non-quarterback contract record. 4 years, $188 million. But that goes on top of his 24 million fifth-year option for 2024. So in total, 5 years, 212 million. So everyone was like, "Oh my god, 47 million per year." But what Goot and Ball did is they're like, "Okay, we're gonna shock and awe with this big ass annual number on the new money side of it," and at the same time, Micah, when you add in the fifth year, because that's how agents and shit work, when you negative recruit and stuff like that, yeah, it's 4.5 million less, but you're still making 1.4 million per year more the next guy kind of thing. So they gave Micah his money because of void years and all that kind of stuff. Micah's cap hit for this season, so it's less than it was when it came in full guaranteed. Bumps up just under 10 million next year to 19,200 and change thousand. Then, and in 2027. Okay. And everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, but it's 64. Oh, it's over 64 the next year, blah. The Packers and Parsons will not see the end, will not forget the end of the contract. They won't see 2020 him play on that 2028 number, because they will re-extend him another 4 years, let's say, to wipe out the void or push the void years out and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a masterful use of kicking the can down the road without it killing you, because you're making a what should be a smart gamble that this guy is going to be this good for that long, and you're going to be able to, massage it out, and he's still going to be making top 5 money at his position in, when he's 29 years old. But, the cap will have been continued to go up by then and stuff. And so, like, I, I didn't doubt that they would massage the number a way that would still allow them to do things like retain one of Watson and Dobbs. Maybe they're flipping a coin between Quay and Wyatt. And then the big one that they're earmarking a lot of that money for is Tucker's extension in another year, basically, because Tucker's in year 3 this year. But for all the people that are like, oh, they're going to be hamstrung, they're not going to be able to do things. One of the big dominoes for this trade is they got Zach Tom done early. Like I said, Jerry Jones fucked up by trying to like lowball, and hold this thing out to the end. And the Packers did their homework early. And, Zach Tom's at a stupid undermarket deal kind of thing. These things all add up to how Green Bay operates. And, people are like, what does this do to the window? That kind of stuff. it may shorten it overall if you want to look at it in the super pessimistic, if they don't like hit on draft picks or like guys don't pan out, whatever you want to look at it. But this move turbocharges their chances for this year, next year, and even the year after it. And that's the way you've got to look at this move going forward.
Money wise, I think, well, the way they normally work their contracts is like you explained everything, but on top of that, when it comes into year 3 or going into the year 4, there's always some kind of clause or something in there that it's an easy way out for them to get out of the contract. Whether it's a high salary and a low bonus to where, if they cut him, they're only out like the 10 million or 15 million that was a bonus for that year. So yeah, Russ Ball is a genius. I don't know how they keep pulling this stuff off, but they do. And then when they have to reset everything, it only takes them like a year to reset it. So, it's one of those things. But yeah, I don't know how much more we can really talk on this. I know they said that the readiness for week 1, they were probably going to have him a little bit in there, but they don't fully expect him to be acclimated until week 2 or 3 when he's had a little bit of time into the system. It's going to be a little bit easier for him to get into the system than, say, like a Malik Willis did last year, but it still should be pretty solid for him to get in. You'll probably at least see minimum snaps at just a pass rusher than anything else. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good pickup. I know people are poo-pooing now with the number debacle going on, where now he's number 1 and Matthew Golden is number 0, and I feel sorry for the people that bought 22 jerseys, because even though now they're like collector items, it's still, well, I bought it because I wanted a golden jersey, and now he's changing numbers on it. I wonder if they'll do something like they
I do
did
think
with.
that I think the NFL's jersey policy is you can switch it in. You have like 30 days, let's till after a prominent player changes a number, you can switch it or whatever kind of thing. I'm the kind of sicko that I might keep it, honestly, just because I'm like you said, I'm the kind of the dorky sicko that's it's a piece of history. Like he made that one-handed catch in preseason with 22 on, and we're all gonna remember where we were when that happened, kind of thing. But yeah, I bought my 1 and my 0 jersey, and like you said, let's roll the ball out on the 2025 season.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, so the Packers 2025 season opens with a week 1 duel in Lambeau against the Detroit Lions. And okay, even before the Parsons trade, I know that games shouldn't be deemed must win in week 1 because there's so much time to make up ground. The Packers have kind of proven that the last 2 seasons, but not must win from like a do or die in your season kind of thing, but like you have got to set the tone. You have not beaten the Lions at Lambeau in 4 years now. They beat you in 2022 to knock you out of the playoffs. 23 and 24, you lost with Jordan dinged up at the helm kind of thing on a Thursday night. You've got to come away with the win in this game, and I think they will. For as much as we don't know what Parsons is going to be able to contribute, and the injuries on offense are a little spooky, Detroit is breaking in a lot of new pieces. They are also breaking in a new offensive line. I think their center and right guard are new players. Both coordinators are being replaced. And Hutchinson is a little. I don't doubt that Aiden attacked his rehab, but it's still the first major injury of his career. I know he broke his foot in college, but that wasn't this type of injury. And this is the kind of injury that potentially changes careers. So there's a lot of questions that Detroit has to answer. And for the Packers, it's been close but no cigar except for the Thanksgiving game in 2023. I don't have a score for this one, but I think the Packers, I think LaFleur, I think every player in that locker room before the Parsons trade, they understood the importance of this game and what it means for setting the tone for their season. And with the Parsons addition, it's like not that you get tenser, but it's like, oh yeah, like we're the baddest gunslinger in town and we're gonna make shit happen kind of thing. So I've got this week one as a win. How about you?
I keep flipping it back and forth in my mind because it's a short turnaround. They play the Lions at home on Sunday, and then Thursday they play the Commanders at home, and it's going to be two tough games no matter how much you look at it. So I feel like that they'll win one of them, but they'll lose the other, and it's okay. Which one do you think they'll win? Which one do you think they're going to lose? I think I'll go with the win for this one, and then for the Commanders, I'll go for the loss, just because even with the Parsons addition and him having played the Commanders twice a year for the majority of his career, he'll know a little bit about their system and whatever. But I think it's going to be a rough game either way. So either they're going to win the slugfest against the Lions and lose the slugfest against the Commanders, or they're going to, flip flop it. But I think I'm going to go with a win over the Lions and then lead into a loss over the Commanders.
All right, I realized I already fucked this up. What I was supposed to do this season in honor of Sterling Sharp making the Hall of Fame. If anyone remembers when Sterling Sharp was on the NFL Network, he was really good at it when he was a contributor on NFL Network. To every game, he would always say, Green Bay is going to be able to do this. Green Bay needs to do this. Blah, blah, blah. Green Bay has to watch out for this. I am not picking the Packers because that was like his superstition. And so, God damn it, I screwed it up already. And I had meant to be Sterling Sharp in honor of Sterling finally making it to the Hall of Fame. But you know what? Just to go on with the trend of what you were talking about, I do have them winning both these games. I think that, but where so obviously I'm zigging from you because I have them winning both, but where I agree with you is I think one of them is going to be like at least a 10-point win, like a 10-point or like a late, like a 2-score game where the other team makes it a 1-score victory kind of thing at the very end. But, and then the other one is going to be just a drawn out, like down in the dirt, like back and forth slugfest kind of thing. And I think the Lions game is going to be that. And I have this feeling that this Washington game, weird shit is going to happen because it's a Thursday. It's the first Thursday night game of the season. Like I don't count the season opener because both teams have like gotten all off season to prep for playing on that first Thursday night. But that first team that has to do those first two teams that have to do we played opening Sunday, got to come around and turn around and play the first Thursday night, like the first Thursday night game in week 2. That's the one where it's like, and I'm basing this on the Packers being the home team. They're going to have played at home week 1. So there's no travel. You get to sleep in your own bed, all that kind of stuff. And yes, Washington is dangerous. They have a lot of firepower. Daniels was really good as a rookie, but hey, like sophomore quarterback slumps happen to like every starting quarterback. Jordan had it, CJ Stroud had it. And also, the Commanders were one of the they won the dog shit luck award for the NFL season last year. And I'm not to say that their success wasn't legitimate. I do think they were like a win team, but they got the Bears game, and then they had one more where they scored like 14 points in the last 2 minutes of the game or something like that to come away with the win. So they're still a very young team, and I do think that Halfley is gonna have stuff for them that this one might be a big win for the Packers.
And like I said, anything can happen in the NFL, but I don't know. It's going to be 2 slugfests right back to back. I don't know. I'd put it at like 25% chance that they'd take both of them. But, I want to be more realistic than Homer. Because Homer-wise, I would say, they're going to go 21-0 with the Super Bowl ring. But realism, obviously they're not going to win every game, but looking ahead through the rest, through some of these other teams, it's like, I don't know if they're going to start the season that undefeated. So,
There's a lot of question, and that's what makes this picking the games kind of rough, is because you have all the question. What's up with Jaden Reed's foot? Which one of the receivers are truly healthy going into the season? What is the starting O line situation? I know that there's really only one spot up for debate, but it's like, what is the starting O line going to look like? How is the run defense going to go without Kenny in the middle? And, how many snaps is Micah going to be able to play and all that kind of stuff? Is Xavier McKinney fully healthy? There are all these, like, I say they're more nagging questions than they are like true full blown, like, oh my God, the season hinges on these going right or wrong. But there's enough doubt to cloudy any wins or losses. I'm pretty confident in where the Packers are going into this season. The main thing that I don't want to see that they've had the last couple years is the mental mistakes that have just plagued them to open. 2023, we kind of wrote it off too. There was just so much youth on offense at the skill position. You're breaking in two rookie tight ends. You're breaking in, a rookie slot receiver in Jaden Reed, slot rookie Dontavian Wicks. Watson and Dobbs were injured to start the season and all. You didn't know who the left tackle was because Bach got hurt early and stuff. And so, like, you had all these things. And then last year, it was, Jordan didn't start the year super great, but you're playing on the slop drop in Brazil. Then he got hurt, and then Jordan was playing injured the whole rest of the way, kind of thing. So just get off to like I said, the wins are what we want, but more than anything, for confidence in where this team is supposed to be heading, you want to see them play good, smart, clean football. That's the most important thing going into the season for me.
yeah, I mean, that you just hope for the best. Everybody knows the first game, first true contact. I
Yep.
know they had some contact through the preseason, but this is their first true contact in meaningful football in a while. So, yeah. Uh, but see, this is where I said I just don't know if I can see the Packers to continue going that undefeated, because I don't know if there's a way that they could lose to the Browns. They, the next week, what's that, week 3 against Cleveland, and they're a hot mess right now. I know their defense decent, and of course Myles Garrett is going to be tough, but unless he's out, isn't he dealing kind of with an injury bug also?
I think he's a little dinged up, but I think he's expected to start the season. Like, he's going to play the start of the season. Yeah.
But they also announced what Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback. Uh, yeah, I don't know how well I could. I mean, this could be one of those games that the Packers would take lightly and get their asses handed to
It
them.
would be the most Packers thing to win the first two games, have the mini bye, have all this momentum. You're atop the NFC because you've beaten two teams that made the playoffs. One of them made the NFC Championship game. The other one lost to the other team that made the NFC Championship game. And you're riding high. You're like, oh, we have extended time. We're going to get Parsons more integrated. And then you blow a game to the Cleveland Browns. It's your first true road game and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, even before the Parsons trade, this team was trying to carry itself as a true contender. And you've heard the urgency in LaFleur all offseason. One of the things we talked about after that first preseason game is LaFleur was pissed about how sloppy they were in that game, and it's carried over into the subsequent preseason games where he's like, okay, we got better, but he wanted to fight Anthony Belton in Indy because he was flagged for so many penalties and all that kind of stuff. And finally, after the Seattle game, it was like, okay, he's like, I'm not satisfied, but I'm pleased that we're trending in the right direction, kind of thing. And I do think that this team is going to handle its shit better than the last two seasons have, and so that's why I've got week 3 as a win. As much as it's like it would be the most Packers thing to win week 1, week 2, and blow week 3, I think they're going to win in Cleveland.
Yeah, like I said, it would have to be one of those prototypical Packer games where they go into it thinking Flacco's going to start, but Flacco has some kind of injury that's going to hold him out. And then one of the backups is going to come in like a Tommy DeVito type deal or Bailey Zappi type deal. And it just completely throws the Packers out of the loop. But I have them winning this one. So I'm at what? 2-1?
Yeah. And I've got them at 3-0. And then week 4, as like poetic justice, the Packers go to Dallas before they head into the bye. I think, I know Kenny's going to be ready to go that game. I know the rest of those guys are going to try to be out there to prove like what they've got against Micah and all that kind of stuff. I think Dallas is going to be in all kinds of hurt. I think that they're going to be internal, external disarray. Never been a Brian Schottenheimer guy. I just think that he's in over his head already. Like for things that aren't his fault or his responsibility, but it's like, yeah, you haven't even started your first like you haven't coached your first regular season game, and the owner is already making the sideshow the front show and all that kind of stuff. And like, if the Packers are riding in 3-0 and Dallas is like 1-2 or whatever, like I said, as much as you can't really say week 1 is a must win for the Packers, that's the kind of game that could break the Cowboys early in the season if they lose that game. So I've got the Packers going in undefeated into the bye.
I think they're going to end up winning this one. I had this as a win even before the Parsons trade, but now he's going to be wanting to come for blood. And by this time, you would think he would be more comfortable in Hafley's system. But I think there was more drama behind the scenes than what we're truly going to know. That's why some things were going down the way they went down. I think he's going to not necessarily want to take it out on the other players, but show Jerry that you messed up.
And the Packers have a really good history in Jerry world. And yeah, I think you're right that that Micah was always going to play up in a game against the Cowboys, but the fact that the game is in Dallas, I think he's going to play even harder, because it's like, I could have, maybe on some level, I should have still been here, but you know what? I'm here, I'm happy, kind of thing, and like, let's do this, let's dance, kind of thing. So, yep. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes. So, week 5 is the bye. Always hate the early bye, but honestly, in this scenario where you have Parsons, you're integrating him and all that kind of stuff, it might be a little good that, and especially like I said, there's so many injury things that we don't know. None of them are like really bad, but you're not certain how certain guys will be. That having the early mini bye and the early full bye, that might help the Packers. Coming out of the bye, you're at home against the Bengals. This is going to be one of those big tests for Hafley. Having Parsons, I think they're gonna nuke that Bengals O line. Like, I just think they're gonna absolutely shred that Bengals O line up, and they better, because they don't match up well on the back end against those receivers. So, gotta get pressure on Burrow. I've got this one as a coin flip though, because like I said, I think, like you mentioned, Hafley should be better integrated, but I'm still not sure we'll see the kitchen sink at this point. But he should be like playing, 40, 50 snaps in the game kind of thing and stuff. But Burrow is good. Chase is elite. You have Higgins there to like balance out the offense for them. And yeah, I have it as a coin flip, but I think the Packers are going to win this one.
If Mason Crosby was still the kicker, I think I would go no. This isn't a slight against Mason so much as to say the last time the Bengals and Packers came together, it was the whole Mason Crosby slaughter fest of missed kicks. So, in
I
that
remember Will
case,
Blackman on Twitter going, "Oh no, Mason."
I think we were all going, no, Mason. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn on it, like you said, coin flip. I want to say it's a win just because let's say they do go down, or yeah, they go over to Cleveland and lay an egg in a most prototypical loss, that the Bengals would be a prototypical win if they lost prototypically to the Browns like the Packers have in the past. It's one of those games where they're gonna, I hate comparing them to college teams like I do, but it's very Hawkeye-esque where they play up to these great teams, but they play down to these bad teams. And that's kind of what the Packers have been doing the last few years. So I have it as a win. I agree with you, though. It's a coin flip.
And then week 7, Packers go to Arizona. I think Arizona is like a tire short of a tire fire, but it is the first like cross country trip. The Packers traditionally always have trouble on these kind of games. It is the afternoon game, so it's not like a travel and have to like wake up early kind of thing and stuff, which would be weird for a West Coast game. But I think they're gonna win this one.
Yeah, the only thing that I could see happening is maybe if there's some ticky-tacky injuries going on and we're missing a few players, that it could cause some problems, but overall, I would have to say it's got to be a Packers win. I don't see the Cardinals being able to pull that off.
Yeah, it's a tall task. That roster's in, like I said, they don't know if they're rebuilding or trying to get anywhere. But yeah, so I've got the Packers 6-0. You got them heading into the Rogers Bowl, and the Packers will be traveling to Pittsburgh. Okay, will they even play Rogers at this point of the season?
I don't know, but they'd be really hurting if they are not, because I think they put Will Howard on IR, didn't they?
Yeah, and I can't remember if they designated him to return or not. And Mason Rudolph would be their backup. Yeah, I'm just, he's, what is he, 42 or 43 at this point? He's up there. And yeah, we'll see what happens. You know, the Steelers are always a tough opponent. They play mostly good football. Their O line's in flux though. They have DK now. Trying to think. I think they still have Fryermuth. I don't know. I, I'm really struggling to see how I could see them being like I don't know how many games they'll have played going into week 8, but I could see them being like a 1 or 2 loss team at that point. But I could also see them being like struggling to be 500 when they face Green Bay. So I do think that the Packers will win that game.
This is another one that I'm kind of torn because I could see it just so Rodgers could get that distinction of winning, against all 32 teams, that some kind of something goes on to have the Packers lose this game. Is this before or after the trade deadline?
It should be before, I think.
So there's even a chance somehow that the Steelers talk the Packers out of Romeo Dobbs, which has been the off-season rumor because Rodgers isn't happy with the guys he's got over there.
Yeah,
Uh,
November 5th is the deadline.
so They do have. It's one of those situations that I'm kind of confused by it. Why they got rid of Pickens too, unless they were afraid that DK's personality and Pickens' personality couldn't be in the same locker room. But had they kept Pickens on top of getting Metcalf, I would be a little bit more worried about this game. I know my boy Caleb Johnson has been looking pretty good in the preseason for the Steelers. So depending on how the Packers have been doing with run defense, that could be some issues. Again, I might a coin flip because let's just say this. If Pittsburgh wins against Green Bay, that is one of your signs that the NFL is scripted. And I mean it. There's no doubt in my mind that if they beat Green Bay, you can tell the NFL is scripted because what better script to continue the Rodgers script than to beat his old team, get to the 32 mark against every team in the NFL. You just I, that's what I guarantee it. That would be more of a reason that the NFL is scripted. But depending on how their offensive line holds up, I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the pass rush. So I got to say Green Bay wins it.
Week 9 is the Panthers. Packers should win that game. Like, it's at home. Um, yes, this is sort of like a potential trap game. You're at home. It's after the Rogers Bowl. It's right before you face the Eagles on Monday night in Week 10. But this is a game that if you're a serious contending team, you should win this game 99 out of 100 times. And the 1 out of 100 shouldn't happen here.
When was the last time Bryce threw for 300 yards?
That guy isn't coordinator anymore.
Because that's the only thing that keeps popping in my mind is somehow they're going to let Bryce Young run all over him. God, I'm really homering all these picks.
Oh boy, he didn't throw for 300 yards last year.
I'm telling you, I think the last time he threw for over 300 was against Green Bay.
Yep, it was.
So
he has like a 298 last year, but yeah.
So that scares me. And what's even worse is he's more of a get out of the pocket type quarterback too. So even though they've got a room full of speed, are they going to be able to contain him? I'm going to have to go with a win for this one, but a loss for the next one, just because I've got to change it up. Because like I said, it looks too homerish that I'm 6-1 going into the Eagles game.
And so that's the thing is like, the way this season sets up, if they do what I think they'll do the first 2 weeks, that could springboard and galvanize them through into this Eagles game, which I do have as a loss. I know it's at home, but these are the defending Super Bowl champs. I know they're replacing a bunch of pieces on both sides of the ball, but the core of their team is still there. And until we see otherwise, they're the champs and you got to knock them off. And I know Green Bay is doing a bunch of things differently and better, but the things that they need to prove they can do, they have to prove they can stop the run against a team that wants to run on them. They need to prove that they can shut down an explosive pass catching duo and that they're, what should be an improved, what was reportedly an improved pass rush before the Parsons edition and obviously after the Parsons edition can actually affect Jalen Hurts as a passer. So that's a lot of questions. Like I said, this is getting into the part of the season where guys are dinged up, who's healthy, all that kind of stuff. And I'm mostly looking at that from a Packers point of view, but I do have this as a narrow Packers loss.
That's the only way I can see it because I just there's no way I can go through this all the way to this portion of the season and say they've only lost one game. Some of these games I think are going to come down injuries, snaps, what luck these teams have got. So I've got to have the Eagles as a loss, even though I think there's a good chance that they could avenge their playoff loss.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be, because at this point they should have ironed out a lot of the wrinkles that we saw in preseason. They should be fully integrating Micah if everything's gone well. Covington's impact, all that kind of all these things. The arrow should be pointing up, and this should be a measuring stick. And the main thing, like I said, obviously you want to win this game. You can't have like a, in 2019 when they play the 49ers and they get the shit kicked out of them by the 49ers. You can't have one of those games. This has to be at worst a competitive loss. Obviously you want the win, but like I said, we're the team with something to prove. And as much as the Parsons addition changes the calculus, there's a lot of questions the Packers have to answer before I can get on board with them with saying like they're gonna be. It helps that the game is in Lambeau, but there's a lot of things that have to happen before I'm like, yeah, they're gonna beat the defending champs. So moving on to week 11.
See, this is tough because on paper it should be an auto win.
But this is one of those, I'm kind of writing it down as a they might lose a dumb game one because they're so physically beat up from that Eagles game. And I hate to say it, don't believe in Jackson Dart. I don't like a lot of the Giants offense outside of neighbors, but this is just one of those situations that it doesn't work out well for the team that plays Philly, like kind of thing and stuff. And it's a short week. So yeah, you're going from Monday night to a noon game. Yeah, I just don't like the turnaround on that one. So I've got this one as the second loss of the season. The Packers are home. No, they're going to lose back-to-back games in the 2025 season.
I've had some of the same thoughts. And we're coming into a stretch where it's like, I don't know. I think I'm going to change my. I think I'm going to change my Panthers one. I think that's going to be the shit the game is the Panthers. So I'm going to go with the Giants, or the Packers beat the Giants. Because I think if they come out of that Eagles game healthy but pissed off and come across the Giants that are maybe middling, I think they're going to beat the hell out of them.
I can easily see that too. So, like you said, I've got it as like a coin flip to a dumb loss kind of thing, but I can totally see that being the case. Week 12, home against the Vikings. They're going to win this game. Long as Jordan and Parsons are healthy, they're going to win this game. Um, as much as the Lions are the target, I do think LaFleur is like, I'm freaking sick of losing to the Vikings, and we're going to win this damn game, and we're gonna get off on the right foot in the division. So, like I said, it's as simple as that. I think the Packers are the better team, and JJ won me a national championship at Michigan, but I do have questions on how he'll hold up in the NFL because he's still like his build is not like super strong kind of thing, and he's he's listed at 219. That's the thinnest 219 I've seen in a long time. So will he get to week 12 is my question, and if he doesn't, the Vikings are in trouble.
I'm not a JJ believer, no matter what. I mean, just because had he been able to play last year, it'd been different. But he didn't play anything last year. He hasn't played anything really other preseason snaps so far. I don't think I want to say this is going to be a wash year just because he hasn't had that time to get acclimated into the NFL. So I'm going to take it as a Packers win. It's at home. Vikings have pieces, but I think by this time the Packers will know what they have and know what they can do.
Week 13, the Thanksgiving game. I've got this one as a loss. I think, like I said, they're not emptying playbooks or anything, but you're coming off of a division rivalry game going into another one on a short week. And I just think that you're going to split these ones against Detroit. You had to get the one week one, but I think that they're going to drop a weird game on Thanksgiving.
I'm going to say the Packers go back to their dominant ways and take out the Lions. They're going to be 2-0 against the Lions this year. Again, I think the Packers are going to be a cohesive unit. Yeah, there are going to be some injuries by this point and some guys not doing so great, but who knows? There could be some additions in there similar to a Howard Green pickup or a Eric Walden pickup or something like that. That they're not great players, but they're gonna be just good enough to help you. So I'm gonna have this one as a Packers win.
Week 14 against the Bears, win.
Win.
It's in Lambeau, it's a win. Week 15 at Denver. This one's tough. That Denver defense is going to be good. It all comes down to whatever you think of Bo Nix. I'm not a Nix believer. I've never liked him as a prospect, as a quarterback. I know he played well at times last season, but I think Halfley's going to have. You always do. There's always the concern with going to Mile High and all that kind of stuff, but I think the Packers are going to be ramping up for the playoffs, and I think they're going to, I don't think it'll be a blowout because the Broncos defense is that good, but I think it'll be a strong, like, 2-possession win kind of game.
I'm going to call this a loss. For some reason, the Packers have had a horrid history of going into Mile High. I'm going to call it a loss on this just because I think by this time, I think this is going to be one of them ego punctures because I think the Packers will be riding high through 4 weeks of wins against Giants or theoretically wins from Giants, Packers, Lions, and then Bears. That this could be the puncture one. So I got this one a loss.
16 at Chicago, win.
Win.
17, Baltimore.
This is another one that I think is going to be an ego puncture.
Yeah.
I hope, above hope, that by this time the defense is like a top 5 defense in the league. And, hopefully Micah's sitting at that 9-10 sack region and throw another 8 from like Rashawn or even LVN or whatever. I hope they can contain Lamar, but I don't know. I think they're going to be like that kid in Little League that, oh no, we can't beat these guys because this is, they have the big kid over there. And so, yeah, I have this one loss.
I think so too. I always have a hard time picking this kind of game for Green Bay. I know it's at home, so it gives me a little more hope, but you add in, like you said, all the variables about like Lamar, MVP caliber player, all that kind of stuff, and it's like this late in the season, you're playing for positioning, and yes, you want to win all your games, but also are you strategically resting guys to keep them healthy and stuff? And I just feel like there's going to be some weirdness to this game that we're not going to be able to account for. So yeah, I do have this one as a loss. And then week 18, I think it's going to be a win. I think it's going to be one of those secure the top seed kind of games. So I think the Packers are going to show really well in it. That wraps up my season. I have them at 13-4 there.
Well, I'm going to call this one a win because I think LaFleur and them are sincere in the fact that they want to get back to being the top dogs in the NFC North, and they're not going to let these guys get away with it. So, I understand they're probably not going to come out 2-0 against the Vikings or 2-0 against the Lions, but I think they're going to have a better record in the NFC North than they have in a while.
No more 1-5.
Right.
So, yep, that put a wrap on that. What's it called? Let's get to the season. I mean, I know that we've kind of glossed through these games and stuff, but I know we kind of had with the last couple seasons we sort of had the same kind of like, oh, if it goes this way, if this goes that way, but like 23 breaking in a new quarterback, 24 there were questions on roster, but you were hopeful kind of thing. This year there's some funky injuries going into the season. The Parsons, like when will he be fully online and acclimated kind of thing, but this was a team I thought they were going to win 11 or 12 games going into the season. With Parsons, they should be pushing for the teens. And I have them barely breaking into at 13, but 13 wins is a lot of wins in the NFL. So that's where we are with that. As this is going into week one, we will start up our opponent preview episodes. So we'll be recording that Wednesday night. Should be coming out Thursday, so you have something to listen to as you wait for the Eagles and Cowboys games to open up the NFL season. But otherwise, please check us out on our. Please check out the website ohanapackers.org. Carlos has been putting out a lot of articles to get you prepped for the season. I even wrote a quick thing about the Micah Parsons deal. What did the positives and negatives from it? Check out the merch. Please support us in that manner. Please follow the podcast on your social medias at Ohana_Packers on Twitter. Follow the two of us on Blue Sky. Just search our names. On Facebook, search Ohana Packers Edition, and on Instagram at Ohana Packers Edition. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're listening to. And Joe reached out for questions, any sort of comments. Please get those into us. Send it either to the Twitter account for the excuse me, for the show, or to each of us individually, and we will get those answered or worked on as we go to produce the show this season. We want to be putting out content you're looking for. That puts a bow on our offseason talk for the 2025 Packers. We roll in, heads high, eyes gold, gold in our hearts and high expectations. And let's see if the Packers can go and meet them. Anything else you got before we sign off today?
No, just keep following us. Let us know what you wanted us to talk about, and hopefully one of us will be right.
That's Iowa Joe. I'm Mike. Go Pack Go, and aloha.